One of the nice things about coming to daily Mass is you get to hear a lot of the readings that we never hear in the canon of Sunday Masses. Of course, the story of Jesus talking to Nicodemus is also one of the more intricate and difficult readings. It has a lot of information and a lot of references to things that sometimes we go, I'm not sure what they're talking about. At the very end of that reading, he talks about the serpent being lifted up in the desert. And he refers to a story from the Old Testament of Moses, maybe some of you remember it, where they were being bitten by small lizards or snakes, and people were dying. And of course, Moses, as he always did, asked God what he was to do. And God said, you put this serpent, an image, put it up on a pole and raise it up, and everybody that looks upon this serpent will be healed. Surprisingly enough, we use that same very image today, and all of you have seen it. Doctors. The image of doctors in hospitals is a pole with two serpents intertwined going up, and it's the symbol of healing. And this is what he's referring to, is the physical healing. But Jesus takes it much farther than that. He's now talking about his own death and what's going to happen to him. Of course, this is John speaking, and he's giving us a foreshadowing of what's going to happen to Jesus, and he says it to Nicodemus. Nicodemus is a member of the Sanhedrin. He's one of the high priests. So it's interesting that he's having this discussion with a high priest, who later we will hear in the book of Acts, which we were reading today also, about the priesthood being converted, that the priests from the temple after Jesus' death and resurrection were also being converted. But when Jesus talks about healing here, he's not talking about healing of us physically. Obviously, sooner or later, we're all going to not be healed physically. We're going to pass on to the next world. But he's talking about us being healed spiritually. Our world is full of a lot of angst. You heard me yesterday joke about they will know we are Christians by how we drive on the 405. I mean, even getting back and forth to work these days creates a lot of stress and strain and pressure and, difficulties. So, but trying to deal with death and going to heaven, that's even harder. But we're called constantly to look at the cross, to look at Jesus being raised up, to find not just physical healing, but the spiritual healing we need to live in this world, and the spiritual healing we will need to move on to the next world.